We'll call the regular meeting in the New Ulm City Council for July 3rd, 2018, 4:30 p.m. to order. First item on the agenda is your consent agenda items. What's your wishes?
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items. Any discussion on any? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 2A, consider a motion approving the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for Sioux Trails Chapter Minnesota Deer Hunters Association to conduct raffle gambling at Best Western Plus, and that's for September 17, 2018.
I'll move it.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 2B, consider a motion approving the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for the Church of St. Mary's, and that's for September 23rd, 2018.
I'll move it.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 2C, consider a motion to approve the issuance of a temporary on-sale 3.2% malt liquor license for the Church of St. Mary's. That's for the same date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Let's see, here we go. Item 2D, consider a motion to approve the issuance of a peddler's license for David U. Ansons of Southwest Advantage Company.
I'll make a motion to approve the license.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, and that's from July 5th, 2018, ending August 3rd, 2018.
Just for clarification, that subject to receiving fees, correct?
Correct. And the purpose is to sell educational books and software, so we should probably, just for knowledge's sake for those that are watching.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 3A, number 1, consider a resolution approving with conditions an application from Beth and Jason Varr requesting a conditional use permit to place a special purpose fence on the property located at 511 Summit Avenue.
Last Thursday, the Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions. The conditions would be that if the property was ever sold, that it would be removed or brought up to code to be within the 30-foot setback. The commission felt the additional height would provide privacy and safety for the resident and family. It's kind of where we're at with it at this point in time. It's setting a precedence in the community, though, about putting a 6.5-foot fence in a 30-foot right-of-way. I don't know if any of the other counselors have had an opportunity to drive by and look at it.
I certainly had some concerns with this request. My understanding is the property owners came in and got a fence application, but then built the fence higher than it was the instructions allowed them to do. Correct?
They took a permit. They were under the understanding that they could build a 6.5-foot high fence. They were not, they didn't understand that they would have to be 30 feet back from the street to start the 6.5-foot. They would have to be in the 4-foot rule to go that close.
So the errors
Where we're
made, weren't they supposed to make a phone call before they started building the fence?
They took the permit
It
and.
has instructions on it, correct?
Correct. And they, from my understanding, for how they stated to us, was they erected the fence, and then Elwood came to tell them, after the fence was up, that
It was in violation.
that was in violation of the 30-foot setback. They could have the fence there as long as it's in the 4-foot high, but we're at 6.5-foot high. So they're asking for, to leave it and have the 6.5-foot high fence. Now, we have granted, in the past, we did one last year, but that was topography issues from the street, from the sidewalk level. It was at approximately 4 feet, and the people were using it for privacy for their patio to enjoy their home.
I guess that's why I'm struggling, is the fence was put up without following the proper rules, and now we're supposed to just approve it, and if we pass this tonight, we're setting a precedent that we can now, that we're telling other folks, just go ahead and put it up, and you're probably gonna get it passed at the council meeting, and I got problems with that. That's not the way the world works, and that's not the way our ordinances are set up, and I don't know what our counselor has to say about that, but
In the past, I
Struggling with it.
dealt with some of these issues. It's one of those, okay, it's easier to ask for forgiveness and construct it. I'm not totally in favor of it, though, because of setting the precedents. Build it and we'll okay it. And I assume the building official's not here, that they still hand out the packet. It's not just a fence permit. I'm positive that is specifically explained. Where's your property line? You have a site plan drawn. They're supposed to submit it with the heights, side yard, front yard. So I got a problem with it. Just setting the precedents.
Residents are here if they would like to speak. Just stand up at the mic and name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Beth Favre. My address is 511 Summit Avenue. And
Well,
this is Jason Favre.
Jason Vavra, same residence. When we called down, they said it was okay to do a 6-foot fence. So that's what we constructed after we got the permit. Then afterwards, when Elwood showed up, he said, you can't have it there. So we looked at it, we asked twice specifically to make sure that it was okay to put it.
And I came down here and I talked to the gal at the front, the gal at the desk, and I filled out all the paperwork. She had me draw a map of where my home was, where our yard was, where the street was, and where the fence would be. And I did that, and she said, okay, this looks right, and that's it. Like, I didn't take a packet home, I paid for it and everything. And then when Elwood came to the house and said there was a mistake made, she didn't tell you right. It was supposed to be a certain point, and he explained everything to me, but it was after the fact, and she said, you know what, this should go through, when do you want to start? And we said ASAP, and she's like, all right, this should be good to go. It's got to go through, but it should be fine. So we started right away that morning. So we did not do this under the pretense of ask for forgiveness, by no means whatsoever. This is not at all for that reason. We're not just putting up a fence because we want a fence and it looks nice, and that's not the reason at all behind this fence. The reason is for privacy and safety for our children. We have a neighbor that's a felon, and that's why we wanted this fence, because of things that have come up recently. And so we just want to keep our children on our side, our privacy on our side, and he has privacy on his. And please know that it wasn't erected with the thought of, well, we'll just do it, and if we get our hand slapped, so be it. That was not at all. We asked twice, and we were,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
So, I guess my opinion is if we at the city made the mistake, we shouldn't penalize you.
Right.
It's not right. If they came down and asked and we gave them the wrong information, then I think we have to suck up to it.
And it might just be that we may have to educate more of our staff
Right.
before a permit's issued, that we don't have a situation like this that comes up upon us again for the future.
And there's conditions to this too, though. So, it can be taken care of itself in the future, whatever, if you sell the property, so on and so forth.
Right, and it's not a permanent fence. We use stakes. So, because our intention was, if we happen to move, or if our neighbor moves or whatever, we would take the fence down. It's in big, I don't know what you call them, fence spikes that are driven into the ground that can be removed. So they're not cemented in.
Or at one time, you could cut the fence down and leave it right in place and
Absolutely.
and cut it to the height within the 30-foot
Absolutely.
setback.
Yep.
So there could be a compromise.
Absolutely.
The other option would be for the city to pay for the cost to put the fence in compliance with the current ordinance.
I'm not gonna go with that one.
No, I'm just
Because
saying that is
I
another
worked in
option.
that department, they've given out so many times, people coming in for fence permits, I have a hard time believing they gave them the wrong info.
Sir, we're not lying.
No,
I mean, we're honest people here. We're not at all
believe
lying.
you, I mean,
When people come in for a fence permit, is there somebody get back to them? How does it normally work, the process? Do we have anybody here? I guess we don't have, what's his name here when we need him?
building official is gone this week.
I can tell you, when I went in for a fence permit, they give you the layout, the corners, the front yards, the setbacks all the way around, the diagram, the whole thing. That's given out. I won't stake my life on it, but I guarantee you, 99% of the time, somebody comes in for a fence permit, they get the fence information.
We didn't.
And I don't know what happened, this time. I'm just saying.
Can I say one thing? I
That's
do want to
normally what
say.
happens.
So the gal that worked at the front desk, we started talking about this fence. And, I just said, the reason why we want to erect this is because of this situation. And she was very sweet and heartfelt. And after Elwood came to our house and told us about this, I had to go down and fill out an application and bring down the application fee. She came out front and apologized to me, and she said, I think I just got really caught up in your guys' situation, and as a mother, I completely understand where you guys are coming from. And she said, and I just have to say I'm sorry that I gave you the wrong information. So she was very sweet and forthcoming, and she admitted that she did not give us the information we needed, and that she felt bad about it. And that's the truth. Like, we never got a packet, we never got anything. We just 2 times over the phone, and then in person she told us that. And it was a 6-foot fence, it's not a 6.5 foot, if that matters, but
Yeah. Okay.
Comment they made, I guess things happen, people do make mistakes, and life goes on, so I think we just need to make a decision here and move forward.
Well, I'm going to offer the resolution, waive the reading, approving with conditions the application of Beth and Jason Varvra, requesting a conditional use permit to place a special purpose fence on the property located at 511 Summit Avenue.
Do we have a second?
I'd like to talk to
Second.
Elwood, and he's not here, so I'm not going to move this, I'm not going to second it until I know more info. You can if you want.
Again, I stopped up, speak with the building official, he's not here this week.
We had a good table and
The table is,
bring it back. to the
I think
next
you got to
meeting.
ask it, what, 3 times or something, or
Okay.
whatever.
Do we have a nomination? Second?
Well, you got a motion.
Yeah, we
You
second.
got a motion.
I offered you a resolution. but yeah.
Okay.
I just think we just want to make sure we hear the whole
All right.
story. We're missing.
We don't have
building
a, with
inspector.
lack of a second, motion dies. Want to,
I think if
What-
you wanted to table it, wouldn't you need to move to table
Yep.
to the
Right,
next
yeah.
meeting? So that'd be the next motion. This would die for lack
I'll
of a
offer- Yeah, and
second.
I'll just offer a motion to table it so we have more information. So we're just going to have to bring it back. Sorry. Yeah.
On the plus side, they're not saying take it down.
Yeah, we're not saying no, we just want to know more.
I understand.
2 more weeks.
do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, table it to the next meeting. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 4A, oral presentation conducted by Clara Koff, retail specialist, New Ulm Chamber of Commerce regarding downtown holiday garland update.
Okay,
Right.
good afternoon. I just wanted to give a brief overview and update of where we are in the process of the downtown holiday garland. As you're all aware, it's been hung downtown in the holiday season for decades. And after a small fire on the top of Riverbend Business Products in November of 2016, the question of safety came up and responsibility, liability, things like that. So last December, Brian and Audra talked, and we decided to hold a meeting to get building owners, business owners, city officials, chamber representatives together and discuss the future of the Garland. What does this look like? And out of that meeting, Audra tasked me with taking this on, and we formed a subcommittee out of our Downtown Action Team Committee to look into this process. I did have a couple handouts, should be in your packet, I believe. The first thing we did was we invited building and business owners. We had about 25 people here. And from that, we sent letters out to the building owners. There are 24 building owners involved in this, where the garlands have been hung or could be hung. In your packet, you have, I don't know if I can put this up. You've got a map with just yellow lines on it. This is directly from the map that Mr. Gromitz gave me of where the garlands can be hung in downtown, based on building height, based on strength of structure.
Well,
Okay.
for verification, that's where the existing ones are.
Correct, and you had added in, there's 2 extra
Right.
that could be. Okay, so that is what we were starting with. That's our starting point. The next map has the pink and green and yellow on it. The buildings are numbered. They're not named. The names are on the bottom. That is our status as of today. Multiple letters have been sent out, phone calls made, visits in person made, talking to these building owners, business owners, getting their input on the situation. So as it stands right now, we have 4 business owners that are choosing not to participate in hanging the garland from their buildings. As of this afternoon, one of the no's has changed to a maybe. And we have 4 on this map in yellow that are the maybes. It's now 5. Of those 4, 2 of them are maybes only because the person across from them has said no. They're willing to do it, but the person across from them, the building, has said no. So that leaves them kind of hanging in limbo. The rest are good to go. They said yes, they'd like to participate. They'd like more information as far as easements, liability, responsibility, things like that, but they do want to participate in the process. So as you look at this, at the top of the page is 3rd North and Minnesota Street. So there's 1 able to be hung there. The maybe that came in this afternoon is numbers 5 and 6 going across. There's a potential for number 3 to be shifted 1 building to the north based upon evaluation of the building. Would it be structurally strong enough? And that owner is here. The next block is where we have not as positive a response. Then the block from first to center, they're all yeses all the way down. So 4 garlands could be hung there. And then into the next block, because 1 on one side, 1 on the other side, we're not able to hang garlands there. So that's where we are at this moment. It's a little bit confusing to look at that. I also made a chart, which is this page. And this shows where the garlands were hung last year, where they could have been hung. There was 1 cable that was not used last year. And then the potential cables that Brian had shown me what to do. And then the X's on the right-hand side are the yeses, nos, and maybes. So this is where we are at the moment.
So what are your next steps?
Actually, I need instruction from you and from Brian and from Audra of what to do next. Where do we want to go with this? There are some options available. What do we want to do with the garland? Do we want to go forward with garland? Do we want to do something else? I'm basically the gatherer of the information. on this.
Cara, are the maybes looking for more information, like what would the easement look like, and the more specifics?
They're looking for, would they be responsible for the easement? Who would pay for the cost of the easement? They're concerned about insurance. Would their insurance go up because of that? And then the liability, of course, if something were to happen. They just want a little more information. And of course, I didn't have that for them at that time.
Right, and I think in discussing this with the city attorney's office, I don't think we have an answer for
Right,
those
right.
either. The city council, if they want to take all the liability, for all these buildings, I mean, you probably could, I don't know that would be the best thing to do, take liability for private buildings. But somewhere along the line, there's got to be a decision point where, you can say the building owner has to do this, they have to make their structure solid enough to be able to attach to, and then the city would take the responsibility outside of that. There's gotta be a line that can be drawn, and we haven't spent any time talking about it
Right.
as far as actually drawing an easement up.
Right.
We haven't done that, and I'm just kinda curious if maybe that's the next step, or we have to have something that we could show the maybes and say, this is how it would look, or how it would work.
Yeah, and understandably, they're concerned, the cost and things to them. So I think if we had more information to give them, we might be able to change them to yeses.
Some of the owners probably may already have coverage to their own insurance already, so it may not be any extra expense for them. But I think we got to keep moving on this, because it's going to get cold before you know it.
Yep.
Maybe, Carrie, you want to touch on some of the other options that this downtown action team looked at? Like, if we don't get permission to do all 12, if it's 4, 8, or whatnot, maybe doing the light standards or the changing the globes, if you want to just fill them in on that?
Okay, if you wish. Before we go to that, I did talk with Larry Botten at the PUC, and he advised me that if the garlands do go forward this year, all the guide wires do need to be replaced. He said they're too thin, too weak, and they need to be much firmer, and then who, of course, would pay for that? So that was a consideration also.
Do we know a cost on that?
It depends on what we would choose, what would be chosen for it,
Right.
because they range greatly, he said. But he said all the guide wires need to be replaced. So,
Mr. President, I have spoken to Brian about this when it first came up, but I really haven't had any involvement. I didn't attend this meeting in December, and there are a number of issues. I'm still not sure who actually owns the garlands, the lights.
The city does now.
Okay.
On the letter.
It used to be that the chamber owned them, and then the city provided the actual garland, the greenery that went on, and we installed.
Right.
Okay? I think, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, there was a insurance question at the chamber, and they couldn't insure it, and the city at that point agreed to take ownership of the lights, because it didn't make our liability insurance didn't go up or down because of it. And so realistically, the city owns everything. What we don't have is an easement to put it, in essence, to maintain it, to keep it going. And that's what drove the need to go back to the property owners, the building owners, and say, we don't have anything wrote down that says we have a right to hang this off of your building. So let's create this, let's get it done right this time. Get easements, and since we have to replace all the cables, that's the time to make sure that the buildings are solid enough to be able to hold the wind loading on those decorations.
Well, I think Brian has got, the issue about the safety of the installation on the building and whose responsibility is that, and if they need to upgrade the connections, whose responsibility is that? Those are things that we would need to get a commitment on, unless the city is going to pick up that cost as well. I can remember these garlands as a child walking down Minnesota Street with my father, and that's prehistoric times. So I would hope
it
they
is.
could continue them, but there are a lot of details to be worked out. And Councilor Schultz is right, we've got to get going on this, because
Run out of time.
we have a lot of different property owners to reach an agreement.
And I think the major question is, you got one block that's in agreement at this point in time, and the other two are not, they're not 100% green yet. And so it's kind of like, is one block worth it? Do we need 3 blocks worth, to make it look like it did in the
Because we had 7 last year?
we had 7 last year. The total number that can be hung, according to the math that Brian gave me, was 12. So, and as it currently stands, we have 5.
Cara, have you talked to any new property owners? Is there, if they were to change the anchors, could you put it on some different buildings?
These are the buildings that they're able to be put on.
Okay.
For example, like-
Every
Doesn't fight.
potential building
Correct.
owner will, okay,
Correct.
gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some locations we'd love to have, that decoration there, but one side of the
Sure.
street has got a 12-foot high building and the other side's got a 32-foot high, so you just can't do it.
Yep. Well, and this is something that I know our community is very, I mean, as soon as this hit the paper, I was getting calls or people stopping me in the street. You better make this happen. You better make this happen. This is something that people have a really strong feeling on, and because it has a lot of history to it, and so I do hope that we can make it happen. But it sounds like we need to keep moving and getting those yellow folks into green. So I don't know if that's having a meeting with all the yellow folks at one time, or approaching them individually and.
I think maybe individually might be a
Say,
good.
we gotta move.
Yeah,
We
so I
need to
can
know
answer
what
their
you're gonna
questions.
do.
I know for sure that two of them, like I said, they want more information. So if there's something that I can take to them, as far as the easement, inspection of the building, who's paying for that. I believe we had spoken that if repairs are needed, that it's the building owner's responsibility, that kind of thing. So if I can get some
Just
information, I'd be happy to pass it
preliminarily,
on.
I would, anticipate that the building has to be structurally sound enough to be able to make an attachment to it, and that's the building owner's responsibility. Then the actual attaching of the attachment point, whether it's an eye bolt or whatever, that would be the responsibility of us getting the easement to install the decoration, the cable.
Yeah.
And that's the whole essence of the easement. So I can cut that in two. The question is, how much money are we gonna spend getting an engineer or a building person in to go up with a cherry picker to look at all of these sites and make a determination that, yes, this building is solid, then this one over here needs, I mean, I can't do it, I don't know our building inspector. Pretty sure the last time we talked about it, he said, that's not up his, alley of expertise. So, I mean, and then when you find one that says, yes, I want to hang that on my building, and he's got to put $15,000-$20,000 worth of work into his, whether it's tuck pointing or, taking off a bunch of brick and putting it back up, to make it solid, then it becomes real. Then that yes becomes, heck no, leave it alone,
Yeah.
So it's just not as easy as one might imagine. Just drill a hole and put an eye bolt in and you're good to go. It's some buildings probably are really strong and can do it. Others may not be.
So is that another question for our building inspector? Would he have the ability to say, this is probably gonna be a good one to be inspected, and another
Because
one?
he
to say,
doesn't want it
I
out
don't
never?
think he's gonna use
No,
verbiage
I mean,
like
just
this,
to-
probably.
If we could have one level of, these are probably gonna be good ones, and these are never gonna work, that type of thing, so we could, if we're gonna bring an engineer in, that he's looking at the priority level. Because if we have 5 that are good to go now, if we can get it up to another 3, 4, 5 rows for this coming year, try and get a few more for the next year.
Right.
We're not gonna get it all done, there's just not enough time from what I'm seeing. Not if we gotta order cables and we gotta try and get everything set up before then. I don't know.
Kara, have you pursued looking at putting in posts or anything like that?
We talked about posts way back at the beginning, and they were very cost prohibitive. I believe it was 400,000.
Pretty close. And on top of that, there's a lot of wind load. That's a sail, what you have hanging off of a cable. 2 points, one on each side of the place. And you put a post up, they anticipated that the post would be 18 to 20 inches wide at the base to handle that, to that wind load. And the reason, a building is sitting there, it's got that whole mass sitting there. The post is sitting up in the air and it's attached to one, and now you've got the mechanics, and they just going they showed us some posts that other cities have done, and it was about as ugly as, we've got decorative light fixtures downtown. They would be hugely unpopular. Yeah, they just would not be aesthetically pleasing. And it would cost. It would cost a lot of money.
I know I had asked you, also asked you about the streetlights, if we could hang them across there somehow, or on the banner poles, and you said both times they're not strong enough
Yeah.
to do that. So those are options.
The poles are designed for, limited loading due to wind.
So if we could commit to getting at least 3 more strands across buildings for this coming year, would that be enough of a push? Would that help get you what you need?
If I could get some answers to the people who have the questions, I think they would say yes.
But before we would
makes-
do that, we'd want to have the
Well, I know,
right,
but I
the
mean-
right to do that, which is
Yeah,
the
we got-
easement part.
Yep.
Or do we just ignore the easement and just say, let's just put the cable up? I mean, I wouldn't recommend that. Because then the questions are all unanswered. Who's going to do what? When, we know things happen. The last time, there was enough wind movement that it wore through the cable covering on the wires, and the electricity ran to the building and arced across on the flashing of the building.
Right.
Stuff happens, and unless you have, I think, some legitimate document saying you should be there, I'd be, now that we know what the problem is and we know what we got to do, I'd be reluctant to say, oh, heck yeah, just throw some more up and let's roll the dice and see what happens.
As much as I would love to see it go back to how I remember when I got here, and that's a little bit later after you and your dad walked the street. But a gentleman a former owner of a building downtown, came to me and he had an idea and somehow to raise the money because he was looking at his former building and his downtown, what he used to be able to see out of his windows. He was concerned that many of the buildings downtown are going to start dropping bricks. So maybe it's something that we need to check out anyway to see if we're going to have to worry about bricks falling on people without the added strain of the garland.
Right.
But I would love to see the garland stay. I've had a gentleman on the phone telling me, well, my garland is much lighter, it's artificial. That's been something that New Ulm has talked about since I was a boy, about one of the few towns that still use artificial garland.
Natural.
Real.
Natural, real garland. And maybe that's a brag point, maybe it's not. Maybe nobody cares if we're doing something one way or the other. As the gentleman said, well, mine is a lot cheaper and it lasts for years. Your garland, you have to put new up every year. Well, yes, and, but here again, where is that point with the New Ulm citizens? Maybe council meeting and the newspaper and the radio station can, put some of this out a little bit more, and maybe we'll get people saying, here's $10, here's $50, here's $100. I don't know. I have no answer for that.
Okay.
In my mind, what I'm hearing, we need to start with the ones that have given us the green light on that easement process. Even if we choose to decide to hire a licensed structural engineer to go up and look, we need that first, correct?
Right.
The actual easement.
I can put something together for discussion purposes so people can see it. And I guess, sooner we get it out there, the sooner, if there's major problems, they're gonna let us know. Part of this, I suppose, if you're gonna get to the point of bringing in a structural engineer, and if our current staff is telling us we need to get heavier wires, the engineer's gonna need to know what's the gauge. What are we putting up? How much weight is going to be on there? So it's not going to be the existing arrangement. Someone will have to give them that information. And then you add in the weight of the natural garlands. I don't know what that's going to do, but I can put something together.
I would assume the cables are made just a whole lot better now than they were 50 years ago, and
I don't know.
Well, we've put up a new cable, within the last 4 or 5 years, because some have fallen down and we've,
Oh, okay.
we've
I didn't-
put
I
some
thought
up.
we
So, but the point is, most of them are really old
okay.
and they need to be replaced. After the fire at the Business Products roof, they put in insulators, where they could. And I think they did something else. They grounded something, so hopefully that's not a problem, in the future. But, we all know stuff happens. And to put up, if we're going to, go into the future, let's just do it right. Make sure our connections are good, make sure our wire's good, and move forward.
So can you get us some costs for what, 'cause I have no clue what these wires would cost.
Well, I don't think, even if you sat and said they were, $2,500 a piece, to run across. You got 10 of
I
them,
don't have a clue. Okay.
$25,000.
Yeah.
Uh,
So do you want a motion, Roger, to work on that, or can you just do that?
No, I think that's something, like, getting a sense of what you'd like to see. I'll talk to
Okay.
Brian and put something together
And how long a time do you need for that?
tomorrow morning, I suppose.
Oh,
No, I'll try and get
Record
something out
reflect.
as quickly as I can, but I think whatever we generate, I don't know if the council wants to see that before it's shared with the property owners.
We trust you.
Okay, because
I don't.
there are a lot of terms to be worked through in that, so, okay.
Good.
Yep, I will try and keep it moving so that hopefully we can get it to Cara and she can talk to her people, come back with something more specific before the season arrives.
Okay.
Is there more that you need from us?
As far as the easements, this is what you're writing up
Easement or other
into
stuff?
me. Insurance and liability costs, the inspection will be done by the city, or paid for by the city?
Well,
We need inspection.
yeah, if we're taking the lead and we want this
We
to
have to.
occur, then
Okay.
we can go up and inspect it.
Okay,
But, so we're gonna be inspecting private property, telling them that, yes, it's strong enough, or no, it's not strong enough. And then
have
the
to
rest
pay
is
for
up
it.
to the property owner, I guess. So, yeah, I would
Okay.
say we can do the inspection part.
okay. So
Well,
I'll
and I
go,
think it might be sort of a chicken egg thing, because they can put an easement together so people can at least kind of see what we're talking about. But ultimately, the council will have to decide, depending upon what the cost of the new cables is gonna be, what the cost of the inspection is gonna be,
Right.
if you even want to move forward with that. So that'll be your decision, but at least we can keep this process going with the property owners.
And we just need to keep in mind, it's something that we had in this community for how many years? How old are you now, Roger? Oh, don't say.
120.
And it might be a one-time expense again for the next 50, 60 years. So we need to keep that in mind, that
Right. Okay, so Roger will be working on the easement, and I'll be working with the electric distribution to
Okay.
calculate the costs of installation.
Sure.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to come back to us again if you need more information.
yep, once I get this information, I'll pass it on to these building owners, and I'll come back and update again.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you
any
for
other
coming.
questions, or? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
yep, thank you.
We'll go on to item 5A, consider resolution granting New American Legion Comrades a value of blanket exemption from the code 8.20 dangerous weapons and articles, subdivision 3, discharge of firearms and explosives. Brian?
Yeah, a lot of times things just happen in the community, and then all of a sudden, somebody asks a question and says, can I do this? And I'll say, well, no, this section of the code says you can't, fire blank guns, or you can't do this discharge of firearms and explosives. And they'll say, well, how can these groups do it? And so, in order to clean all this up so that the council approves those type of activities, I talked to the city attorney, and he suggested that the Comrades of Valor probably should deserve a blanket exemption to this city code, but that they still would be required what they're doing today, and that is notifying the police department that there's a funeral on Tuesday and that there'll be shooting. So if somebody hears it, because sometimes they'll even shoot outside the church. That has happened.
Outside the church and outside either of the two funeral homes.
Yes, yes. When it's at the cemetery, it's not like a big deal. Most people don't even hear it or know that it's even going on. But in town, it does, and so they haven't had a blanket exemption in the past, and I think this would be one of those situations where it's a social community thing that occurs when veterans
Yeah,
are
Mr.
being.
President Brian, I think this is the only organization that is doing this. Is that correct? As far as I know, it is. but
Yes.
that's-
Yes,
yeah, okay.
it's now not one organization. It's not Legion, VFW, or DAV. It's everybody put together
Is that-
into a group called Comrades of Valor. Comrades of Valor has their own legal paper signed.
Yeah.
Status.
everything
Except,
else.
there's always an exception. We had an event probably 2 months ago out at the cemetery regarding a Korean War veteran, Lieutenant Neiman, I believe.
yeah.
And they brought in the Air Force Color Guard, and they shot too. I mean, our guys were there, so there's always that what if. And in that particular situation, an outside group came in, shot their guns for the ceremony too. So, but if you want to allow something like that to occur under the Comrades of Valor's umbrella, I think there's a way of doing that.
And there are times when the New Ulm Battery has made a statement that anytime a mayor, previous mayor, sitting mayor, whatever, passes, and if the family asks for a cannon shoot, they would provide it for that veteran's family, not veteran's family, excuse me, city former mayor's family. So that might be another rare occasion.
Saying we don't have too many mayors?
Past mayors,
Oh, past, okay.
living past mayors.
All right.
All right, this is just cleaning it up, basically.
Yeah, we did that last time.
Well,
Entertain a motion or
I'll
resolution?
offer a resolution and waive the reading, granting the New Ulm American Legion Comrades of Valor a blanket exemption from Code 8.2 Dangerous Weapons and Articles, Subdivision 3, Discharge of Firearms and Explosives, subject to conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second off the resolution, waive reading. Any more discussion? Seeing none, Finance Director, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
President Schmitz?
Yes, motion carries. Item 5B, consider a motion to approve the appointment of election judges for the 2018 primary, general election, and general election.
I'll offer the motion and big thanks to all the volunteers.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5C, consider motion confirming the appointment of Brian Filson to the Sister City Commission.
So move.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6A, consider acceptance of a list of claims paid and approve a list of claims to be paid. Claims paid in the amount of $1,272,867.54 and to be paid in the amount of $1,102,615.40.
I'll move it.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on any? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. With no more business, meeting adjourned.